Is that boiled grass? The voice came from behind a cluster of tubular vines, slick with condensation, in the hydroponic lab of Vessel Tarsys 9. Professor Vellik emerged, his elongated head tilting side to side in the way his species expressed incredulity. His 4 fingers held a thin slate, though his eyes scanned the steaming bowl in front of Lucas Elridge. Lucas, hunched on an overturned cargo container, didn't look up. He adjusted the temperature dial on his portable heat plate and stirred the contents of his makeshift pot with the handle of a broken sampling tool. "It's not grass," he said. "It's a moss analog from Sector 14B, grows in shaded irrigation beds, smells like spinach, tastes like wet shoe. I'm trying to make it edible." "You are attempting to cook," Vellik said, watching like one might observe a nest of insects. "That explains the odor. I had assumed something had perished in the filtration ducts." Lucas tapped excess condensation from the lid of the pot and set it aside. "You want to try some? I value my internal organs," Vellik said. "And my species is not adapted to consuming combusted carbon matter. We synthesize nutrients, as you know." Lucas finally looked up. His cheeks were blotched red from the heat, and his fingernails had green residue under them. "Yeah, and your synthesis cubes taste like powdered drywall." "Drywall. Never mind." Vellik walked closer, his long legs bending backward at the knees. His eyes narrowed as he studied the pot. "You humans often engage in this ritual, cooking, preparing substances only to alter their structure through fire. It is inefficient." Lucas stood and wiped his hands on his pants. "It's not just about nutrition, it's about taste, comfort, culture." "Inefficient culture," Vellik said. "Your ancestors survived on raw roots and charred meat. Now you steam moss and pretend it is something it is not. Curious." Lucas exhaled through his nose the way he did when he was trying not to get annoyed. "I didn't bring a spice rack to space, Professor. I'm improvising." Vellik's eye ridges twitched. "Humans are always improvising." "You are creatures of poor planning." Lucas didn't respond. He picked up the pot and poured the contents into a small metal bowl. The green sludge sloshed around like something dredged from a swamp. "You have the luxury of criticism from a species that's genetically engineered to process protein from light," he said. "We're not built the same." Vellik's tone shifted to one of academic interest. "You truly believe this is edible?" Lucas took a bite. He winced. "Barely. Needs acid or salt. Or flavor." Vellik made an amused sound low in his throat. "Your culinary attempts are a reflection of your species' desperation. You would attempt to digest a rock if you believed it contained calories." Lucas set the bowl down. "We adapt. It's what we do." "That is what concerns the council," Vellik said. "Your adaptability makes you volatile, unpredictable." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Because we try to make food taste better, because you are willing to consume anything," Vellik said. "Even this viscous plant waste. It is not resourcefulness, it is reckless biology." Lucas chuckled and walked over to the wall panel to rinse the bowl. "You know, you invited me on this assignment to collect xenobotanical samples. I didn't expect a lecture about my lunch. You were invited because your species has a unique tolerance for environmental variables," Vellik said, "not for your culinary prowess." Lucas turned. "You're just mad I'm trying to cook dinner and you're stuck with nutrient paste." "I do not require enjoyment from sustenance." Lucas leaned against the console. "That's your loss." Vellik made no reply. He turned and left the lab, the door hissing shut behind him. The moss dish was awful. Lucas knew that, but he didn't care. He wasn't cooking for approval. He was cooking to remember. That night, while everyone else on the vessel entered rest cycles or nutrient processing routines, Lucas stayed in the hydroponic lab. He cataloged plant properties, tested pH levels, experimented with heat applications. He found a fungus that gave off a nutty aroma when toasted. Another plant's fibers broke down into something like noodles when boiled long enough. He ground dried leaves against a panel edge and tried to create powder for seasoning. Each attempt was trial and error. Some burned. One exploded. He had to flush the air twice. 2 days later, he burned his hand on a misfiring plasma coil. The blister stretched across his palm like a translucent cap. "Your extremities are fragile," Vellik said, observing him in the med bay as the dermal patch adhered. Lucas winced. And yet I still outlived the last 3 engineers who tried to work on the surface of Yarthai's 4. Vellik stared. Your stubbornness is not the same as resilience. Lucas didn't reply. He flexed his hand slowly, testing the pain. The next week, the vessel entered orbit around Allos 3, an uncolonized world rich with plant life and moderate gravity. The mission was to collect samples, assess for xenobiology compatibility, and report back. Lucas volunteered to lead the ground team. You injured your hand, Vellik reminded him. I can still walk. I can carry a scanner. The patch is holding fine. Your obsession with flora is becoming irrational. Lucas zipped his field bag. You think I'm trying to prove something? Vellik didn't answer. He didn't need to. The planet's surface was thick with blue canopy trees, spongy moss beds, and vines that coiled like living ropes. Lucas moved carefully, scanning with his wrist pad, collecting samples in jars, labeling each with notes. He took clippings, bark scrapings, and even tasted a few leaves after running basic toxin checks. By day 3, he had a stash of over 50 plant types stored in the field lab. He began cooking again. It started as curiosity. What would this root taste like roasted? Would that leaf's oil emulsify? Could this fruit's juice ferment? Then it became obsession. He built a makeshift smoker from thermal tubing and heat vents. He crushed seeds with a rock. He mixed pastes, fried strips, boiled stalks. He learned which plants gave off acrid fumes and which turned sweet under heat. Most of the crew ignored him. A few watched. One of the engineers, Cora, tried a leaf stew and gagged. It's bitter, she said. Lucas added a pinch of powdered bark. Try now, she did, then blinked. It's better. Vellik observed from a distance. 2 weeks passed. Then the council delegate arrived. Tall, crystalline, and silent, it inspected the camp. The alien professor briefed the delegate while Lucas prepared that evening's meal. He was roasting root slices over the heat vent, using plant oil as a glaze. The human experiments with wild vegetation, Vellik said. He claims it is for sustenance, but I believe it is ego. The delegate turned, its surface refracting light. Lucas didn't look up. He was focused on the sizzling roots. You may mock me all you want, Professor, he said, voice calm, but I've eaten better in the last week than anyone on this rock. Vellik folded his arms. You are playing with biotoxins. I test every plant. I neutralize what I can't consume. And if you fail, I haven't yet. Silence. Then the delegate moved closer. Lucas plated the roots with a smear of tangy paste made from fermented leaves. He added a curl of vine that crisped like bacon when dried. He held out the plate. Want to try? The delegate extended a tendril. It touched the food, absorbed a sample, a pause. Then it emitted a soft pulse of green light. Vellik's eyes widened. That is, approval, he said. Lucas grinned. Tastes better than a cube, doesn't it? That was the night everything changed. 3 days after the delegate's visit, Lucas found himself standing at the far end of the research compound's open-air greenhouse, under a fabric canopy that filtered the sun into a pale gold shimmer. The air smelled faintly like mineral water, and something sharp, probably the vine pods he'd been drying since morning. He was slicing them open with a folded survey knife when he heard the unmistakable cadence of Vellik's approach. Long, deliberate footfalls, and the occasional click of his data slate being tapped mid-stride. You've commandeered the entire eastern bed, Vellik said, not looking up from his screen. Several xenobotanists have logged complaints. Lucas wiped his palms on his thigh and turned. I didn't realize anyone else was interested in the lichen sprouts. Last I checked, they were structurally unremarkable and texturally offensive. Vellik made a noise somewhere between a cough and a scoff. Your sarcasm is noted. Lucas gestured to a tray of sliced pods. They crisp up better when dried under diffuse light. Direct exposure makes the sugars caramelize unevenly. Vellik paused, as if deciding whether engaging further would cost him more indignity or curiosity. You've begun categorizing flavor profiles. Lucas picked up a sliver and bit into it. It cracked audibly. Texture, too. This one's got a snap like kettle chips. Neutral taste. Could carry seasoning. You are not a chef. I wasn't a xenobotanist either. Now look at me. Vellik tilted his head. Your confidence is illogical. You lack formal culinary training, interspecies nutritional certification, and basic hygiene protocol. Lucas raised an eyebrow. I wash my hands. You incinerated a cleaning cloth yesterday. It caught fire on the heat plate. Not my fault. Vellik moved closer, inspecting the tray without touching it. You're aware the council's initial report flagged this region's flora as unsuitable for ingestion, yes? Lucas opened a second tray, revealing a paste the color of bruised plums. That report was based on surface toxicity scans and chemical assumptions. I've run metabolite breakdowns. Turns out, most of the warning markers were due to a protein that only binds to copper-based blood. Vellik blinked slowly. You do not have copper-based blood. Lucas grinned. Exactly. Vellik folded his arms. Your recklessness may yet become an interstellar incident. I'm not feeding anyone without consent, except myself, and I signed the liability waiver, 3 times in pencil. On the back of her ration box, Lucas held up a leaf-wrapped bundle, unrolling it to reveal a soft, glistening center. Taste this. Vellik recoiled slightly. I will not. My digestion system would reject it. Lucas shrugged. Then don't, but this one's stable across 5 species, including yours. I ran the simulations. It's mostly starch and lipids, no reactive compounds. Vellik narrowed his eyes. You simulated alien digestion. I borrowed your biosynthetic model from the lab. You accessed restricted files. I guessed your password. Vellik's jaw stiffened. That is a security breach. You really shouldn't use your hatch date as a password. For a moment, there was nothing but the distant hum of the filtration units and the quiet chirr of a local insect that had made its nest near the irrigation pipes. Then Vellik turned and walked away, muttering something in his native tongue that Lucas didn't need a translator for. By late evening, the compound's ambient lights had dimmed to simulate dusk, and Lucas was hunched over a crude fermenter made from repurposed sample jars. The air inside the greenhouse had gone humid, thick with the tangy scent of decomposing fruit skins and drying roots. He adjusted the valve on a pressure tube and leaned in to check the consistency of a bubbling slurry he'd been aging for nearly a week. A faint hiss behind him made him glance back. It was the delegate again. Lucas stood slowly, brushing dried powder from his shirt. Didn't think you'd come back. The delegate said nothing, but its lower limbs adjusted in action Lucas had learned indicated interest. It moved closer to the fermentation unit and emitted a series of low-frequency pulses. Lucas tapped a response onto his translation pad. Still working out the flavor layering, he said aloud, not expecting comprehension. This batch should have a bit more tang than the last, slightly fizzy. Might trigger a mild euphoria in some neurotypes. The delegate extended a tendril. Lucas retrieved a sterilized tasting rod and dipped it into the mixture, offering it without ceremony. The tendril absorbed a trace amount. A second passed. Then the delegate pulsed again, brighter, faster. Lucas smiled. I'll take that as a yes. Behind him, the door hissed open and Cora stepped in, her boots damp from the perimeter marsh. Lucas, she said, pulling off her gloves, you've got 4 new sample bins out of containment. Vellik's threatening to initiate a contamination protocol. Lucas waved vaguely at the labeled jars. They're sealed. He's being dramatic. She walked over, eyeing the spread of drying herbs and fermenting pastes. You've been sleeping in here again, haven't you? Lucas scratched the back of his neck. Didn't want to lose temperature consistency during the second stage proofing. You're starting to smell like sour leaves and vinegar. He handed her a strip of dried root. Try this. It's like jerky but with a citrus finish. She sniffed it, then bit off a piece, her eyes widened. That's weirdly good, told you. She looked at the delegate. Why is it still here? Lucas shrugged. Free snacks. Cora glanced down at the bowl of bubbling slurry. You're really doing this. Like seriously doing this. I'm cataloging viable food sources from a previously untapped biome. That's science. You're inventing alien cuisine in a greenhouse. Lucas gestured around. Where else would I do it? Normal people just file their reports and go back to ration cubes. I'm not normal. You're going to get us reassigned. Lucas reached for a bundle of leaves and began folding them into tight packets. Not if I get us a new classification first. Cora blinked. What classification? Culinary research zone. You're making that up. Lucas pointed at the delegate. It's still here, that means something. Cora looked at the alien, then at the rows of drying vines and bubbling jars. She hesitated, then picked up another root chip. If I get food poisoning, I'm blaming you. Lucas handed her a small cup of the ferment. Drink this, it'll reset your gut flora. She sniffed it. It's purple and effervescent. I hate that word. An hour later, Vellik returned, this time with 2 additional researchers from the Council's Xenonutrition Division. They wore filtration masks and carried portable analyzers. Vellik walked past Lucas without a word and gestured toward the trays. One of the researchers scanned a dried root segment and frowned. It registers as biochemically inert, no known allergens. The second picked up a leaf packet and peeled it open. Inside was a soft, gelatinous cube that shimmered faintly. This one's got a trace of glycoside compounds, but not toxic. Actually, it's similar to a digestible fiber used on coral colonies. Vellik stared at Lucas. You're reverse engineering interspecies cuisine without formal mapping. Lucas didn't look up. He was stirring a paste thickened with ground seed. I'm just trying to make lunch. The delegate pulsed again, this time bright blue. One of the researchers tapped their slate. That's a consensus marker. Vellik's posture stiffened. Impossible, the researcher turned to Lucas. Have you submitted your food profiles to Central Archives? Lucas shook his head. Didn't think anyone would care. The researcher looked at Vellik. We may need to redesignate this zone. Lucas grinned, not looking up from his bowl. Told you. Vellik stared at the delegate, then at the half-eaten vine chips, then at Lucas. You're destabilizing protocol, Lucas shrugged, or enhancing it, Vellik exhaled slowly. You humans are the only species that would treat survival as a culinary challenge. Lucas handed him a small, leaf-wrapped cube. Try this. Tastes like peanut butter. Vellik hesitated. Then, with the slow solemnity of someone halfway between defeat and scientific curiosity, he took it. Vellik arrived at the greenhouse with a crate tucked under one arm and a look that suggested he was deeply regretting several life choices. The air inside was warmer than usual, thick with the smell of root starch and something faintly metallic. Lucas was scraping a hardened paste off a ceramic tile, his sleeves rolled up and his knuckles stained orange. You've been summoned, Vellik said without ceremony. The council wants a demonstration. Lucas didn't look up. Of what? My cutting technique. They wish to observe your preparation process, in full, under controlled conditions. Lucas tapped the tile against the edge of the table and the paste flaked off cleanly. So they're making it official. They are trying to determine if you are a hazard. That's fair. Vellik set the crate down on the nearest bench. I have been instructed to monitor your methodology. Lucas glanced at him. You volunteered, didn't you? Vellik's eyes narrowed. I was. Assigned. Lucas peeled dried vine strips from a mesh rack and placed them in a bowl. You brought anything useful. The crate contains nutrient logs and a sterilized preparation set. They expect you to refrain from using scavenged tools. Lucas opened the crate. Everything inside gleamed. Polished clamps, modular burners, temperature probes. He held one of the adjustable knives up to the light. This is overkill. They do not trust you with improvised instruments. Lucas unpacked the rest of the equipment, laying it out with care. Tell them I'm flattered. I will not convey sarcasm to the council. Lucas began arranging ingredients. You're staying through the whole thing. I must document every step, including sanitation compliance. Lucas picked up a bottle of clarified sap and held it toward Vellik. Want to help emulsify this? I will observe. Lucas returned to his work. He mixed the sap with crushed seed oil, whisking until it thickened. Once it reached the right consistency, he folded it into a puree made from shredded root fibers and tart leaf extract. Vellik watched without comment, his gaze flicking between the bowl and his data slate. After several minutes, Lucas set the mixture aside and began slicing a thick stalk with the sterilized knife. The cuts were even, deliberate. His fingers moved with practiced rhythm. You are unusually focused, Vellik noted. Lucas didn't pause. It's easier when no one's arguing with me. I am not arguing, I am documenting. You're very loud about it. Vellik shifted position. The council requires complete transparency. Your process is unconventional. Lucas arranged the sliced stalks in a shallow tray and poured a reduction over them. Unconventional isn't the same as unsafe. You are experimenting with biochemistry while unsupervised. I've had supervision this whole time. You just didn't realize it. Vellik tilted his head. That makes no sense. Lucas opened a sealed jar and retrieved a fermented paste. You think the delegate's been hanging around because of my charm? They are curious. They're tracking changes to their own taste receptors. This stuff's triggering biochemical responses they didn't expect. Vellik adjusted his slate. You are speculating. Lucas layered the paste into a folded leaf and sealed it with a gentle press. I'm observing. Like a scientist. That term is generous. Lucas placed the leaf bundle on the heating plate. You're welcome to leave. I must remain. Suit yourself. The bundle began to puff at the edges, releasing a faint aroma of sweet acidity and roasted starch. Lucas monitored the temperature, rotating it with tongs. Vellik's gaze lingered on the edges of the leaf as they crisped. After 10 minutes, Lucas plated the bundle with a garnish of thin sliced root curls and a drizzle of sap reduction. He stepped back. There. That's the dish. Vellik recorded the final image. You must consume it first. Lucas cut into the bundle, revealing a golden interior that steamed gently. He took a bite, his eyes closed for just a second. Balanced, tangy crunch from the roots, sweet finish. Vellik made no move to approach. Lucas pointed the knife at him. Counsel said full observation, that includes taste. I am not equipped to digest Earth-compatible allergens. There are none in this. I do not trust your scans. Lucas took another bite and chewed slowly. Then sit and watch me finish the whole plate. Vellik hesitated. Then, with visible reluctance, pulled a stool from the wall and sat. You display an alarming lack of self-preservation. Lucas spoke between bites. Humans get hungry. We solve problems when our stomachs nag us. Your solutions are rarely practical. Lucas wiped his mouth. They work. That's enough. Vellik tapped his slate. The council will deliberate based on this session. It will take no more than 2 shifts. Lucas stood and began cleaning the tools. Let me know if they want dessert. He worked in silence for the next hour, wiping surfaces, disposing of scraps, and storing the leftover stalks in preservation gel. Vellik remained seated, occasionally adjusting his recordings. Neither spoke. By the next morning, the greenhouse felt colder. The thermal units had been reduced to standard levels, and the filtered light had shifted to a blue-tinted spectrum. Lucas entered carrying a small tray of wrapped bundles, each marked with a different symbol. Cora was already inside, organizing samples. She looked up. What's all that? Lucas set the tray down. Final test run. I calibrated for 5 species this time, all within safe digestion ranges. Cora raised an eyebrow. You're feeding council members now, if they show up. He arranged the bundles on a raised surface and activated a gentle heating cycle. As the scent began to spread, a soft chime echoed from the corridor. The delegate entered first, followed by 2 council nutritionists, both with reflective skin and narrow torsos. Vellik brought up the rear, flanked by a smaller observer unit that hovered silently. Lucas gestured to the bundles. Mixed preparation. Low acid, balanced proteins, mild aromatics. No shared allergens. One of the nutritionists extended a thin manipulator toward a bundle and absorbed a portion. The other followed suit. The delegate pulsed faintly, then took a sample from a different wrap. The observers remained still. After several moments, the taller nutritionist emitted a ripple pattern across its torso, an affirmative gesture. The other produced a low-frequency vibration. Vellik looked at Lucas. They are satisfied. Lucas leaned against the table. They didn't gag, I'll take it. The delegate pulsed again. This time, the light shifted to a pattern Lucas hadn't seen before. 2 quick bursts, followed by a long glow. Vellik's brows lifted. They are recommending reclassification. Lucas frowned. Reclassification of what? Your role. And this site. The shorter nutritionist tapped its own slate, then transmitted it to Vellik. He read it aloud. Human subject Lucas Elridge is to be reassigned as independent field consultant for cross-species culinary development. This greenhouse is to be converted into a designated experimental gastronomy zone. Cora blinked. They're making him a chef. Officially, Vellik said, he is now a nutritional engineer. Lucas crossed his arms. I liked chef better. You have no formal culinary education. I have burns, scars, and a stomach that still works. That's education enough. Cora picked up a leftover bundle and took a bite. Still weirdly good. Vellik closed his slate. The council has concluded its evaluation. You are no longer considered a threat. Lucas gave a mock bow. What an honor. Vellik turned to go, then paused. The delegate has requested a sample of your fermented root paste for archival purposes. Lucas nodded. Tell them they can have the good batch. Not the one that foamed. Vellik left without another word. As the others filed out, Lucas remained behind, wiping down the table. The greenhouse felt different now, less like a side project and more like a kitchen. Cora leaned against the doorframe. You going to keep cooking? Lucas looked around. What else would I do? She shrugged. You could retire from space botany. He smiled. I think I just turned it into dinner. Outside, the twin suns dipped behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the compound. Lucas packed away the last of the tools, sealed the preservation units, and turned off the heating plates. No alarms, no emergency decontamination, no lectures, just the quiet satisfaction of a full belly and a clean workbench.